As many of the underdog slappies like to ask, when puppy? Well, today here at Spike Week, it's now puppy. But the first puppy on Underdog this year of 2026 is almost full, about 91% full as of this recording, and that's one of my favorite times to pounce on these what we like to call time box tournaments, meaning they only stay open for a short period of time. I think there are some particular strategy levers we can pull in these tournaments, especially at the end when they're about to close, when we know guys who have fallen, guys who have risen, guys who haven't been drafted very much, and all that different stuff. We can get a pretty big edge on our opponents in these specific tournaments, like the puppy. And that is what we're going to do today here on Spike Week. Let's do it. Good morning. Good morning. Happy Thursday. It's Thursday, right? Happy Thursday. Doc Warehouse says the puppy filled quickly. I couldn't keep pace. I wanted to max it, but I'm also doing eliminators, field generals, and main events. That is the perfect segue into sort of the strategy around, again, these time box tournaments. Google what time box is. This is where this phrase came from. But what it really ultimately means in our little best ball world is it's a tournament that, like the puppy, launches. It's maybe a little bit smaller. I mean, the puppy is $1 million prize pool, but DraftKings has these, and Drafters has, their $2, and there's other underdog tournaments that open and close fairly quickly, and we'll have a bunch of those over the course of the summer. We often talk about Best Ball Mania and the DraftKings Millie and the Drafters main event, and maybe the FFPC, whatever. We often talk about sort of the flagship tournaments, meaning the main, right? The biggest ones, the ones that are open all summer, the ones that everybody is fighting over millions and millions of dollars. And those are obviously fun and important tournaments. But there can be some pretty big edges. And the majority of the best ball tournaments that are around this whole summer are not those flagships. They're not open all summer. They're open in just a short little window of time. And so the things we may learn in August are not applicable to this puppy. It's going to be filled today, tomorrow, in mid-May, mid to late May. These tournaments are going to have already opened and closed. And so I love to, I'm not necessarily maxing all of these, but what I love to do in these tournaments is come in sort of at the end, like right now in this puppy, and try to find a couple of different things that I think are some strategic angles we can take that our opponents either didn't do, or the majority of the field, right? This puppy specifically is 90% full. So 90%, 70, 75, 80, whatever percentage of the field drafted on a certain set ADP with a certain set amount of information. And that leaves some gaps that we can take advantage of. I think there's a couple of quick things I want to hit before we just start having some fun and drafting some puppies. First of all, yes, Sweet Leaf, before we get into what does when puppy means, and PTB says on the internet, there became this thing. I have no idea who originated it, but just people started asking, because these puppies fill so fast. It feels weird, by the way, when you come from my generation, like puppies resonates with, a WWF, now WWE, in Jerry the King Lawler and his puppies bit. So it still throws me a little bit when I have to say puppy over and over and over. But nonetheless, it's sort of a joke amongst the the underdog community of many years. Is they'll launch a puppy, it'll fill. Sometimes, like, we may get a puppy later in the summer. I don't know about this year. This year's a little bit different in terms of fill rate and such. But sometimes we would get the puppy 3, and it fills in a weekend or whatever, because people just long for these lower dollar tournaments that still have real upside. There's $100,000 to first, or $200,000 to first, or even $50K to first, and it only costs $5 to enter, as opposed to the flagships being $25, $20, a little bit more expensive. So the average best ball player loves these tournaments, as I think they should. It's a lot more fun to be able to draft a bunch more teams with still a shot at life-changing money. So this when puppy thing sort of took on a life of its own. Good morning. Good morning. I agree. Before we get started, Genty says, everybody hit the like button to support our guy. It is already best ball summer. Will we do a drafters wheel spin today? We will not, but we will do another drafters wheel spin tomorrow. So if you're unfamiliar, every show that we do a drafters main event draft over the course of the rest of the summer, which started yesterday, I will shout out to our friends at Drafters. I'm going to be giving away a free ticket to their main event right there. It's $15 to get into their main event. We're going to be focusing on the puppy and the Timebox tournaments today, so we won't be doing the Drafters wheel spin, but that'll be back tomorrow on Freestyle Friday. So yeah, and the puppy, the spelling threw me off. We're weird. Okay. The best ball people are weird. We try to be trendy and cool, and we're the nerdiest group of people on the internet. It is what it is. All right. Let's talk about I sort of, there's more than this that you can do in these Timebox tournaments, but I ultimately think there's like three sort of main pillars that we can take advantage of. And I'll give a couple examples along the way. The very first one that I think is pretty obvious to most people would be when this tournament opens and a certain player, let's think Rashee Rice, Malik Neighbors. These would be the two shining examples for me. I can pull up a couple more in a second of, okay, when we opened the contest, this player was going at pick 14. Now he's often readily available at pick 30 or later. You don't have to worry, like in a Best Ball Mania, about, what if this guy keeps falling? What if this guy, am I going to get the basement price? Because it's going to be closed before that happens. It's almost closed right now. You are getting the basement price if you draft those guys now. And it's going to close, and we can quibble over all the specifics of the Rashee Rice situation, over Malik Neighbors' health. We can debate that till the cows come home. But in this specific tournament, you are getting the best prices on these players out of 100,000 people or whatever. And those are the types of situations, whether you feel uneasy about it or not, are often the best ones to just pile into. Live with the results. If you don't want to draft them in Best Ball Mania right now, don't draft them in Best Ball Mania right now. You don't want to draft them in the DraftKings Millie right now. You want to wait to get more news. You can do that. And you can spend $5, $10, $15, $20, $25, whatever, $100 on, look, if this thing, if we were maybe Rashee Rice is good to go week 1, he isn't a knucklehead the rest of the season, he's probably a pretty damn good pick at the prices that he's going at right now. If Malik Neighbors, right, if we get word in 2 months that Malik Neighbors is ready to rock and roll, he looks great at camp, whatever, you can't go back and you can't start buying again in the puppy, right? It's closed. So buying some of those guys at their basement price in this contest is one of my absolute favorite things to do. If you draft a bunch of teams over the course of the whole summer, it's a great way to sort of spread out, okay, maybe I'm not going crazy on Malik Neighbors in Best Ball Mania because I feel uncomfortable with the injury. I feel uncomfortable with a bunch of different things. No big deal. Maybe this is your tournament that's look, I'm going to take the swing. I'm drafting 10 puppy teams. It's $50, right? Oh, well. If Malik Neighbors doesn't work, I only lost my $50. I didn't lose my main Best Ball Mania teams. It's a great way to sort of still get your exposure to these. Clearly, I think everyone with a reasonable brain could say there's obviously a scenario in which we look back and we're like, what were we doing with this Malik Neighbors thing? What were we doing with this Rashee Rice thing? Why did we let those guys fall so far? Again, that's not the guaranteed outcome of this, of course. That's why they're falling, because people are worried about the downside. But the upside is so big that you can take these swings, buy the big discounts, and guarantee yourself essentially the cheapest price now that the tournament is about to close. A couple of I also wanted to share a couple of ADP fallers and such that here we go. So some of the biggest ADP fallers since so this is since sort of the overall 2026 best ball season started. But I think it's still pretty indicative that we have an ADP. If you go to tools and you go to ADP, you can see this data for yourself. So you can see the total change since any contest in 2026 opened. Of course, the puppy opened a little bit after BBM, if I recall. But I think it's still going to be pretty representative of what we're talking about here. Here's some guys who, from their very opening ADP, have fallen a lot. Now, some of these fell pretty quickly, right? Mike Washington's opening ADP, some of the very, very tippy top guys were generally like, they just had preloaded ADP from pre-draft. And so they fell pretty quickly. But you also have some of these guys. Maybe you don't buy the David Njoku thing. Well, this is a pretty good time to get Oronde Gadsden, right? Denzel Boston was maybe rumored or expected to go a little bit higher in the draft than he did, and he also went to the Cleveland Browns. But you want to buy him, buy this second round pick rookie at his cheapest price? Sounds good. Brandon Ayuk, just there's been no real Brandon Ayuk news, because June 1 is really when we're going to start to get that. You want to buy some Brandon Ayuk at the cheapest prices. RJ Harvey, Jordan James is like not even drafted anymore, and he originally started a little bit higher, right? Emmett Johnson, et cetera, et cetera. There's a bunch of these guys. Wandale has fallen a bunch. Jalen Coker has fallen. Harold Fannin has fallen. There's guys who have fallen a good clip that you can get the best prices on right now. That's over the course of the entire summer. The most recent changes, if you want to just focus in on the last 7 days: Oronde Gadsden, Tyreek Hill, Kayshon Boutte, Mike Washington, Brandon Ayuk. So some of the same guys. But then, of course, Malik Neighbors is up here. Trey Harris, our guy Trey Harris, is up here. There's other guys you can go see on the ADP tab over here at Spike Week. So number two thing that I think is extremely powerful in these tournaments is you can now see, you've been drafting or you've just been following, and you've seen what players get paired together. What players, right? These guys go at the 1-2 turn. They get paired together a lot. They then get paired a lot with the guys at the 3-4 turn. The 101 goes with a lot of people at the 2-3 turn, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You know that inherently already from looking, but you can also use our Draft IQ tool, and I'll do this a little bit more when we get into the drafts, but you can go in and you can see yours and you can see the opponents, things like the combinatorial ownership type stuff. And you say, okay, so I get the 101. I decide I'm going to take Jahmyr Gibbs. Let's just say I'm going to take Jahmyr Gibbs. I can just go in here and say, okay, let's look at Jahmyr Gibbs among my opponent's teams. Now this is let me do reload just to add a couple of teams in here. So 31 teams, not a massive sample, but it can still be helpful, right? And maybe you've drafted a ton more teams. Here's what my opponents have done with Jahmyr Gibbs teams. And you say, oh, wow, okay, a lot of Trey McBride, a lot of Malik Neighbors, right? The darkest colors you can see. You can see how, look at the right side of the board. No, none, right? Nobody ever gets Jahmyr Gibbs with like all these guys that go on the right side of the board, understandably so. And they get them all with the left side of the board. So these are very easy to manipulate type things. Saying, nobody really drafts Josh Allen. Like maybe you really like Josh Allen. Nobody really drafts Josh Allen with Jahmyr Gibbs. Nobody drafts Travis Etienne or Devontae Smith or Chris Olave. But everybody drafts Nico Collins and Josh Jacobs and Trey McBride because that's where they go, right? Jeremiah Love goes there. Oh, also Jameson Williams. That seems like a pretty common pairing. They're on the same team. They go on the same side of the board, right? Colston Loveland, they play in week 17. They go on the same side of the board, right? Caleb, Terry, etc. Jared Goff, obviously going to be a pretty popular pairing with Jahmyr Gibbs. You don't have to like take this all the way down the board and get unique at every single possible in every single nook and cranny of your draft, but you can just quickly see like, I'll just take something a little bit different with Jahmyr Gibbs than what has happened through 90% of this tournament. This is sort of what's happening, right? Jahmyr Gibbs with all the guys over here. So I can take Jahmyr Gibbs with guys that aren't over here and instantly, like, I didn't create a worse team. We all think these guys are good picks. That's why they go in the top 2, 3, 4, 5 rounds. But I can take Jahmyr Gibbs with those guys and get a little bit different. There's a variety of different ways to do that. This is just one example, but this is how I like to do it. And I'll probably pull this draft board up when we go to do some drafts here in just a second. Then the last one, which I don't know why I took that down, but you can also do something similar with the draft board here and look at some players who, let me remove Gibbs from the equation because I'm not trying to do Gibbs, but you can just simply move down to the bottom of the board, right? The late rounds on Underdog and see about how often now this is just my opponents. So someone that I draft a lot that maybe isn't drafted a ton is not going to show up perfectly here, right? Because I have to add my ownership plus them. But if you look down the board and you can see, there's a lot of guys that go in the 17th, 18th round. And we always like to use the auction fantasy football analogy of, at the end of the day, these guys are all $1 auction players. But some of them get drafted at a really high clip in almost every draft, right? Let's look at Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara is drafted in every now. That maybe that will change with some of the news, like we talked about yesterday. Alvin Kamara is drafted in every single draft. Ryan Flournoy is too, because me and my opponents, right? Jeremy Bernard is going in every single draft. Some of these guys, and I'm not even saying that these are bad picks. What I'm saying is it's a bunch of sort of lottery tickets that we're taking at the end of the draft. And there's other lottery tickets who are never taken in this draft. So you can guarantee when you show, obviously in your pod, you're never going to share your original regular season pod. You're never going to share players. But if you get to week 15, if you get to week 16, and most importantly, if you get to week 17, if you took Brennan Thompson, if you took, this is my guy, right? Malik Davis. Malik Davis is my favorite one of these scroll downs. If I had to bet right now, he's the Cowboys' backup running back. Javonte Williams is not anything special. Malik Davis played pretty well last year. The Cowboys are an elite offense, but no one wants to draft Malik Davis because we don't know if he's the backup, him or Jaden Blue or some veteran or whatever. And so no one wants to do that. I get it. But would you like to have a completely unowned player? And when you show up to week 17, like if you show up to week 17 and one of these doesn't have to be Malik Davis, right? Ollie Gordon, Jalen Wright, maybe they're shitty examples because they're on the freaking Dolphins. But another one of my favorite examples is the Ravens wide receivers. Elijah Surratt is 50%. Jacoby Lane, Jacoby Lane is 13%. Rashad Bateman is 25%, right? So this is the amount of times they're even selected. And then is anyone even going to get them through into the playoffs or get them through into week 17? Probably not, right? There's essentially 4. Devontae Walker, 0% drafted by any of my opponents on Underdog. Are these guys locks to make it? No, but is any 17th or 18th round pick a lock to be a smash pick? No, because if they were, they would go much higher. Like I said, some of the backup running backs that people are uncomfortable taking because we don't have any news about it, and these sort of ambiguous wide receiver rooms like the Ravens, we take tons of guys much higher on good offenses like the Ravens, right? The argument for DJ Moore, I'm not comparing these guys to DJ Moore. I'm saying one of the big arguments for DJ Moore is, well, now he's attached to Josh Allen. But then we have these situations like no one takes Ravens wide receivers. Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews are the only Ravens pass catchers. Obviously, Derrick Henry, a little bit of Justice Hill, are the only Ravens players not named Lamar Jackson that even get drafted because we don't know who it's going to be. Bateman kind of stinks. Is he going to? But if we knew Bateman was going to run all the routes as the wide receiver too, right? Maybe you say, oh, well, I think it's going to be Stephon Diggs. Okay, fair. There's not 100% hit rate that it's going to be Stephon Diggs. We can take some swings like this in the last round or the last couple of rounds and not lose anything. Like we're just taking, like they're all $1 players and they all have close enough probability to hitting to compared to each other. Give me the guy who no one else has. Because if I show up and he happens to hit in the playoffs, there's no chance that I'm sharing those guys. It can be super impactful. You get a random Rashad Bateman 2-touchdown game, and there's basically zero chance that he shows up on any of the other puppy finals teams. That seems like a pretty good way to give yourself leverage on the field and just instantly up your win equity in a tournament like this. All right, let's hit some comments, and then Lance likes, if you like Adam Randall, another Raven. I'm not as big on Adam Randall, but I get it. He's very lowly drafted. The competition is not super special behind Derrick Henry. I think that makes a ton of sense. Good morning. Good morning. Let's see. Hitting some JJ Weatherholt. That's really funny. King of QC picks Rice 100% of the time he reaches in the mid third. I am with you. T-Rav, good morning. Let's see. Some Eli Raridan in Jason's life. Let me show one team I just drafted in the puppy here. Let me just refresh this real quick. One team I just drafted in the puppy this morning. I was getting a little warmed up. As you see, I've only done 5 teams. We're going to do a handful here today. But here's a perfect example of what I did similar to this. I didn't get super duper crazy at the end, but we'll talk about it. So I got the 101, which is always a screenshot worthy, right? When you get the 101, I took Jahmyr Gibbs, and then at the 2-3 turn, who is available? But the 2 notorious fallers, the 2 superstar wide receivers that everyone is scared of. There's just really so few combinations in the puppy specifically of Gibbs plus Neighbors plus Rice, because Neighbors went higher, Rice went closer to the 1-2 turn than the 2-3 turn, and I'm like, I'm drafting the shit out of Malik Neighbors and Rashee Rice, especially in the puppy. But even if I didn't, even if I was more cautious about them, I just think it would be malpractice to not click this combination there. We took a falling Bucky Irving. We took a little bit of a falling Colson Levelin, who also happens to play against Jahmyr Gibbs there, stacked Levelin with a falling Caleb, which was nice. And then just filled it out right. Brock Purdy, Ricky Pearsall, bought the Minnesota Vikings backfield, which is something a lot of people don't do. So I'm still using my other tactics that aren't these Timebox tournament ideas. I'm still pulling these other levers. Brenton Strange, of course. I took Parker Washington, another right. Use a secondary stack on the Jags. Then, Stribling. I have Brock Purdy, of course, here, my boy. Ryan Flanoy. And then I took Flanoy. Mooney plays against Flanoy, right, in week 17. And then, again, I took my guy, Malik Davis, down here, who we just saw is like never drafted, hardly ever drafted in the puppy. He also correlates with this team, this late garbage Ryan Flanoy, Mooney, Malik Davis, little week 17 stack. And like wheels up, you know what I mean? So all I did in this team is do the exact. I didn't even have to reach for the unique combination that happened here, especially through the first 5 rounds. It just happened naturally, which is even better when that can happen to you. And I got the great prices on Neighbors and Rice. I got the unique combination with them with Gibbs. I got my week 17 correlation. I got my secondary stacks. I got ADP value. I bought a backfield, and I got my uniqueness down at the bottom with even more week 17 correlation on this team. So you can kind of go through one single draft and pull all of those different levers, all on the same team. So let's go ahead and pop in over here. It is officially 91% full in the puppy. Oh, waiting for 10. This is not going to be very fun. Let's see. What if I show up to week 17, but my teams do not? That was me last year. That was me. Looks like we got the 104. Hold on, let me move my head out of the way here. Let's see. From the 2 spot, I just took Bijan Robinson, Olave, then Etienne. I can look and see what my wrong page. What did you say? Bijan. So let's just look. Bijan plus Olave. No. Now, again, this is a smaller sample. None of my opponents that have drafted Bijan have drafted Chris Olave yet. One has drafted Travis Etienne. Those are just my opponents. It's not the end all be all. But I think it has the week 17 and is probably not overly popular because Chris Olave and Travis Etienne go further on the right side of the board than on the left. I think it will probably be a smidge more owned than the average, like air quotes, unique combo, just because of the week 17 correlation, but it is still more unique than not. Totally agree. Many 18th round picks are zeros anyway, but we'll get unique and take shots on low owned pieces and pray. That's all you're really doing, right? Punt and pray. Yes, I will take Jamar Chase. Is Malik Davis the best strange late round pick that you might be looking back and say he's the reason I won my pod, advanced deep into the tournament? I think so. I think that's why I sort of highlighted him, right? But I think it's the guys who end up as the clear backups and may even mix in a little bit in terms of, like Javonte Williams doesn't play everything. I mean, he plays a lot of snaps, but he doesn't play like every single snap. Malik was playing alongside him towards the end of the season. And obviously they have the contingent value upside. I think it's the running backs in those types of situations, whether you, like Malik, like I do, it could be someone else. Right now, there's a ton of cheap potential backup handcuff-ish type running backs that are just not drafted very often because it's the May 21st and no one knows who these backups are. So it's understandable why people aren't excited about drafting those guys, but it's something to take advantage of. It's something that we can take swings on in our drafts. And look, if it fails, so be it. Most of this stuff is probably going to fail. Welcome to the 18th round of fantasy football drafts in May. But that one, Malik is my personal favorite. And then, like I said, no one debates that the Ravens offense is going to be good. You'll never get right. It's Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry and Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews, and they're just always good on offense. And none of their other wide receivers are drafted unless they sign Stephon Diggs or something like that, which is, of course, the risk. But again, they're last round picks. And even if Stephon Diggs signs, still the wide receiver 3 job is available. Stephon Diggs can't play 2 positions, and they didn't really do much, right? They got rid of all the tight end and fullback bullshit. They're going to play more 11 personnel this year than they have played. So this is a pretty, let's take, I should have looked, I forgot to go look up Chase. Let's take Pickens and see. I don't know if it's any of you guys here to my right, and we'll just see what happens here with Neighbors and Rice. But let's secure George Pickens and see if the room is afraid of Neighbors and Rice. Sounds like a terrible sitcom name or something, like Your Friends and Neighbors and Rice. So I also like Kamani Vidal. I think that one is a unique situation in that. So when we say everyone seems to think Keaton is the RB2, I mean, I think people think so. So I'm going to take Rasheed. Rasheed comes back at 28. We're just going to scoop that up. Jamar Chase, George Pickens, and Rasheed Rice. Let's see how that looks. Jamar. How much Jamar plus Rasheed is there? So a little bit of Jamar plus Rasheed, but then if I put Rasheed in there, let's see. So certainly not some super, but again, we're talking about a very small sample of teams here. But one of my opponents does have this particular start already. So something, if we want to be super uniqueness bros, didn't probably achieve that just yet. But yeah, Vidal and Keaton, because Keaton is such a unique. I don't think the market is just saying if Amari and Hampton goes down, Keaton's going to get all of the work. Keaton is such a unique player that, he's like this home run hitter. Like think to when Mike McDaniel was with the Dolphins. Like Achane and Mostert played alongside each other. Even Jeff Wilson was playing then. Keaton is sort of this home run hitter, change of pace back who would obviously benefit from a volume perspective if something were to happen to Amari Hampton. But Kamani Vidal is also going to benefit in that regard. So it's one of those really, really unique ones where I like to take Keaton and Vidal on the same team, because if something happens to Amari and Hampton, I think I'm getting two useful running backs at really cheap prices that both just get to play on the Chargers, because Keaton is never going to be like, oh my God, Keaton played 85% of the snaps, in my opinion. But Keaton, with his efficiency, and with Mike McDaniel and on that offense, can be he's one of my favorite picks in, at least past pick 100. Keaton is one of my favorite picks, but I also like Kamani Vidal. It's one of those weird ones where we don't have to take stands on every single situation. Every single backfield does not have to be, we don't have to try to be so right all the time. That's the beauty of best ball. If we're doing one fantasy football draft for our home league or whatever, yeah, you probably got to kind of be right about the individual players. In best ball, like, I can acknowledge the fact that the Chargers are a great situation. Keaton is a high upside, fun, high efficiency archetype who fits really well with Mike McDaniel, and also acknowledge that Kamani Vidal could pick up a lot of work if something were to happen to Amari and Hampton. Kamani Vidal could be the passing down back in week 1 for all that we know. So I'm just going to draft both of them. Not always on the same team, but sometimes on the same team. Let's see. Let's do Loveland here. Build a little zero RB stuff. Bucky has also been falling a decent bit. So I've been trying to take advantage of that a little bit. Rice seemed way overpriced on Underdog even before all the bad news. Could be. I don't think he was, but I think Rice is one of the best wide receivers in football attached to Patrick Mahomes with zero target competition. The Chiefs defense got worse. Yeah, he's one of the most efficient wide receivers in the league, like since he come into the league. Absolute target dominator. Travis Kelce's older, not very good anymore. He's like one of the highest volume and efficiency, the combination of volume and efficiency in the entire league, while also being attached to Patrick Mahomes. Feels pretty good. Yeah, we'll take the Evans fall. Can't hurt that he plays Rasheed in week 16. That's a small consolation. So Chase, Pickens, Rasheed, Evans at wide receiver, and Colston Loveland at tight end. Typical Erik, zero RB team. Holy Lord, I got Rice at 46 in a puppy yesterday. Chase, London, Etienne, Rice. See, that's insane. That's insane. He probably ain't going to fall to 46 in any of my drafts today, because I'm kind of just trying to get my third round. Get my third round Rasheed. There could be a situation where maybe I do something a little bit crazy and try to push it. But, I mean, 46 is just... like, pick 46 is like... Look, I love Jameson Williams. Love him. I'm going to be overweight Jameson Williams for sure. Like, Rasheed Rice does not belong next to Jameson Williams, regardless of legal troubles, regardless of the knee cleanup, all that kind of stuff, in my opinion. Hunter Lepke, baller. That quote will forever live in my brain from Shanahan. the World Cup bracket is coming out. I get very excited for the World Cup, but I don't like. I really loosely follow Premier League and international, like really loosely. I'm the worst kind of soccer fan that follows really, really loosely, just enough to have a clue about what is going on, but I'm not familiar with all of the players. I'm not familiar with certainly with fantasy strategy or betting on soccer. But I could, like, if we're at a bar, I could like half-ass my way through a conversation about it. It's like the stone worst kind of fan where like you feel like you know enough to be able to sort of kind of talk about it, even though you probably shouldn't because you really don't know shit. You know, it's like when people. This is gonna sound really fucking terrible, but it's like when people try to bring up sometimes fantasy football and stuff to me out at the bar, or at a friendly get together or something, like somebody you just met. It's like, oh, you work in fantasy football, whatever. Check out this team. Check out my team. I took so and so, and it'll always be a bunch of players that I didn't like or some structure that I didn't like or whatever. And you have to try to like have that conversation. Oh yeah, hell yeah! I have not drafted Joe Burrow yet, and he generally does not come back to me when I have Chase. So that's pretty fun. Preach, preach. King likes Chimere DK on Tennessee stacks. He's a little trickier because he's the wide receiver 4, and he's also like almost a slot only, not like completely, but he's a slot receiver, and they signed Wandale. So I don't, but I these like cheap, maybe kind of good young wide receivers, even if their real upside is contingent value, I still think are pretty good picks. Let's just lock down my quarterbacks here and take Dak. This is another thing that I'm doing is like I'm not messing around at quarterback really this whole year. So if you're here, if you're looking for like deep dives on Jacoby Brissett and Geno Smith and Aaron Rodgers and punting quarterback and all that kind of stuff, I'm probably not your guy. I think one of the edges this year is getting 2 really strong quarterbacks, and that way I can draft like as Shiv says, I'm obviously very weak at running back on this team. I don't have any. This is an old school extreme 0 running back team. So I need to draft a bunch of running backs. I know inherently I'm going to need to draft a bunch of running backs. 7. I have an 8 running back team. Like draft an extreme 0 running back team. But I also have so when I do that, my ideal drafts don't always work out in your ideal way, but my ideal is I'm going to be awesome at every single other position. I know I'm losing at running back. I need to catch up through volume and piecemeal this thing together, piecemeal upside together, piecemeal early season production, have guys fucking passing the baton, right? All the cheesy cliches that we use, ping pong weeks, all that shit. So I need the volume at running back. I don't want to also be like, damn, my quarterback 2 is Geno on this team. Like, lean into the fact that you said, look, I'm going to be awesome at the other 3 positions. Loveland, Burrow, and Dak, and I'm obviously good at wide receiver through 7 rounds. The strategy would be better on DK, I assume. So I don't really think so. But the only reason why DK scoring makes some sense to do this, but the DK market doesn't make as much sense to do this. Every time that I take a, what we would call a detour away from wide receiver or something like that, every time, like I'm drafting plenty of early running backs on DraftKings because you do not ever get punished for it. And the underdog scoring is better for running backs, which means it's better for all running backs. So the later guys have a better, right? There's no 100-yard bonus. So the expensive running backs don't have a better chance at getting a 100-yard bonus than the cheaper running backs do. It's like very touchdown driven, and you can sort of like piecemeal your way together through. So here, I'm going to take Blake Corum. Blake Corum to kick off our running back room. right, has like a little bit of a standalone role. It was getting double-digit carries for a decent part of last year, and then of course has the contingent value if something happens to Kyren Williams. But that's the only like my pushback on DraftKings is you can kind of have your cake. You could build this team and like insert an early running back still and get like the same players on DraftKings. So that's sort of the difference for me. Is DK even the wide receiver for Elliott? So Io Manor was absolutely fucking awful last year, but Io Manor would be like if Calvin Ridley goes down, Io Manor is gonna play, I think, because Io Manor is an outside wide receiver and Shamir DK is primarily a slot wide receiver. So that's sort of how I think about it. It's like who's the wide receiver for? It kind of depends. If Wandale goes down, it's DK is gonna step in for him. But if Ridley or Carnell Tate goes down, it's probably going to be Io Manor. So I took J.K. Dobbins. There's just another, like, on a team like this, J.K. Dobbins is such a smash. Caught up. Are you doing another draft or stopping at one? Definitely going to do another draft, probably two more drafts if we can. Oh, sorry, Joey. I missed I was going to hit this. I apologize. Joey asked, what's your CMC take? We were scared to take him late first last year. He stays healthy 1 year, and now he's a mid first. I don't know. Brother, I am with you. You are preaching to the choir. I have CMC lower than market. I have CMC 11th. So, like, I literally have CMC after Ashton Denty. I understand that may seem crazy to some, but Christian McCaffrey's the big thing that I think sometimes gets lost is, yes, Christian McCaffrey is going to get a lot of volume. Yes, Christian McCaffrey is an awesome receiver. Yes, his floor is very high. CMC's rushing efficiency took a monster dip last year. He was frankly a bad runner. And the receiving stuff, and look, maybe the 49ers keep getting ravaged by fucking injuries every single season, and that may continue when you bring Mike Evans in. But they brought in Mike Evans. They drafted Dejon Stribling in the second round. They brought in Christian Kirk. Ricky Pearsall is back. George Kittle will be back at some point. They drafted another early running back in Kalen Black. Jordan James is still around, who I kind of like as a player. I think they like him as a player. And I think, given the fact that they have dealt with CMC injuries, they have not reached the pinnacle. They have not won a Super Bowl. They have not made it to the Super Bowl in a while. That I don't think they can just sign up and say, we're going to give CMC 30 touches from week 1 to week 18 or week 20 or however long they make it in the playoffs, because he's just not as good anymore. The body wears down, as like you said, just a year ago, he was one of the worst picks on the entire board because he was hurt the whole year. I'm just trying to get out ahead of not just like the inevitable collapse. He already started to collapse as a runner. He's still an awesome receiver, like one of the best receiving running backs of all time, maybe the best receiving running back of all time. So no one is saying like, oh, he should go in the 3rd round. Like, I have him 11th overall. I think it's fine, but I'm not taking him like he goes 6th, 7th, 8th. Like, I'm not taking him over. Like, Justin Jefferson went 12th. I'm not taking Christian McCaffrey over Justin Jefferson. Yeah, pure like he got there on volume, which is fine. But I don't want to pay Kittle, Gainwell, Aaron Jones. I'm gonna lock down this Dallas stack and just take Ferg. We're done. We're done at the tight end position. We're done at the quarterback position, and now we can just hammer some wide receivers and, of course, lots of running backs. There's a tier here, like, so you see Gainwell, Joe. Like, why'd you take Ferguson? There's some good running backs here that you like / need. Well, the hope was there's about 6 running backs in this little tier right here. Now I might get wiped out. That I'm comfortable with, all of them. And I wanted Jake Ferguson to close out that stack, and I kind of don't particularly care whether it was Mason, Gainwell, Tracy, Aaron Jones, Rachaad White, Jonathan Brooks. I have my preference, but but I kind of don't care which one it is. So let these guys decide for me and give me Ferg with them. So Higgins goes, I'm going to take Jonathan Brooks. That is my guy. I need to move him up a little bit in the ranks, but also just from an upside perspective, that's one of the things. I think I'll be able to litter in a little bit of floor along the way here. Dobbins is a good guy to have out of the gate for a structure like this. But then just mixing in the pure ceiling of Jonathan Brooks. Like, what if he's still just Jonathan Brooks from 3 years ago or whatever? The awesome prospect who went in the second round that air quotes, we were all excited about. If that ceiling hits, it's huge on this team. Let's see. Oh, speaking of, I'm not taking Christian McCaffrey over Justin Jefferson. Chris asks, what do you think about Justin Jefferson's outlook with Kyler Murray? Does Murray hyper target any of his pass catchers, or is that offensive environment just too good for everybody but McCarthy? I think it's the latter. I think how I've phrased it is, in the Viking system with all of that talent, like, say whatever you want about Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason. Like a couple of years ago, Jordan Mason was cooking on the 49ers. Jordan Mason was actually kind of good last year. It doesn't seem like it because like the box scores and stuff were terrible, but like from rush yards over expected, success rate and stuff, he was actually pretty good. Aaron Jones is actually still pretty good at being Aaron Jones, right? Whenever he can be healthy. Justin Jefferson is one of, if not the best wide receiver on the planet. Jordan Addison is a great wide receiver 2. Juwan Jennings is an awesome wide receiver 3. TJ Hawkinson is talented. Like, there's so much talent on this team. And then you have KOC in charge, who is just always going to be able to make chicken salad, whether he's making chicken salad out of premium fucking chicken or chicken shit. He's gonna cook, right? But all you need at the quarterback position is, it's a very low bar to clear in order to be able to extract value out of. Damn, there goes Keaton. To be able to extract value out of. It's Moxie right next to me. Oh, fucking course. Let's see. I don't think I've taken Shaheed yet. Shaheed plays against my Jonathan Brooks in week 17 and against Blake Corum in week 16. We can dip into that there. But the bar is so low, right? Like, we're talking about Nick Mullins low. We're talking about Josh Dobbs low. That's all you got to be able to extract value out of this offense, to let JJ cook, to let Addison cook. JJ McCarthy and Max Brosmer were just, they couldn't even clear, right? That's a bar that anybody can step over, and they were not able to step over. And I think Kyler, even though he's very short, that's still a bar that he can clear. He's good enough. Like, I would not want, like, I'm not picking the Vikings to win the Super Bowl. I wouldn't want my franchise having Kyler Murray as their quarterback, but is he good enough to facilitate a Vikings offense with all this talent around him? Yeah, you bet your ass he is. So give me JJ for sure. All right, what's going on at running back here? Not a lot, guys. So I'm going to take Omar. Get my boy Omar on the squad here. Plays against, I don't have Vikings on this team, but plays against those Vikings in week 17. As a fan of owning a backfield, if you take CMC, would you take him with Kalen Black? No, at least not yet. My problem is I still stubbornly kind of think Jordan James is going to be the backup there. But I'm not really drafting Jordan James right now. I actually am need to probably later today update all my draft optimizer target exposures because I'm still too high on Jordan James. But nonetheless, I definitely struggle with it more with the, like first round running backs. The idea of buying a backfield. I don't think it's ridiculous, but like when you're drafting CMC, you really want the full boat of all the work. Like, you're drafting him for the volume. And part of the way that buying a backfield can win is they're kind of chopping up the work. And I don't want my first round pick chopping up the work. Like, It makes a little more sense with Jahmyr Gibbs to me. Maybe I'm being results based, but since we've seen like adding Pacheco onto Jahmyr Gibbs makes a little more sense to me because we've seen David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, cohabitate, both put up strong fantasy results in the same games, in the same seasons. The ping pong effect is real with those two, or has been real with those two guys. It's just Gibbs obviously is a superstar and David Montgomery is okay. So like I can envision it working a little bit better there. Whereas with CMC, it's harder for like CMC sort of requires all of the work in which there's not enough juice to squeeze for a Kalen Black or a Jordan James alongside him. But the out is CMC is CMC. He's a smash, but he misses a month or 6 weeks and you tread water with, Kalen Black steps in for him or Jordan James steps in for him, is sort of the case there. But I don't love it. I'm gonna take Tajay. I need a little bit more running back, like not floor, but a little bit more bankable production. I don't think Nick Singleton is threatening Tajay Spears. I think Tajay is more of a threat to Tony Pollard than Singleton is to Tajay Spears. But if I'm wrong about that, I can live with it in the 14th round. But I think Tajay gives me the combination of contingent value and floor that this type of team really needs. So my wife ordered Starbucks this morning. We're out of coffee, and she ordered Starbucks for herself. I didn't get any, and my wife's name is Alyssa. And well, there I could. Now he says I don't think Nick Singleton is a threat. But I'm going to buy the Tennessee backups and say, look, Tony Pollard, he's not it anymore on this team. That's the bet for this team. I prefer Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears to Nick Singleton, right? But if something happens to Tony Pollard, or if Tony Pollard just ain't it anymore, or if the new regime just prefers, right? It's a new Brian Daboll in Tennessee. And if they like Tajay and Nick Singleton, it's a pretty cheap, speaking of the buy backfield, pretty cheap way to buy a backfield. So anyway, my wife is named Alyssa. If you can see, this coffee's not very good. She orders a Starbucks, and apparently multiple Alyssas ordered DoorDash Starbucks at the same time from the same Starbucks here in the suburbs of St. Louis. And so old Alyssa T, poor Alyssa T, and her iced chai latte, she didn't get it, and they brought it here to my wife, and my wife doesn't like that coffee. So Erik gets a free iced chai latte, which it's not very good, but I don't really care. Where do you draw the line on guys you think are good picks in terms of exposure? Is there too much exposure to the players that you like? I wish I had a good answer to that question. The big thing for me is the draft optimizer has helped with that, going in and like straight up setting some setting target exposures, like going through the process of setting these things really helps me, because it's not about oh shoot, sorry, got caught up in the iced chai latte conversation over here. Okay, we took Braylon. Yikes. I'm okay with Braylon. But so is there a limit to a player's exposure is actually not about that player for me. It's about what are you not taking, right? So when people ask like, what's your limit on a player's exposures? Like, I don't know. And if I think if this guy's going in the last round and I think he is so head and shoulders above the other last round picks, like I don't give a shit. I'm going to go ahead and take my Malik Davis now. taking my low owned RB7 in round 17, and then we can figure out round 18. But that's when people ask that question, I've always sort of struggled, and the draft optimizer kind of really helped it crystallize for me that it's like, is there a limit to, like, when Kyron Williams, the year he broke out, was going in the last round? It's like, was there a limit to what and there was no limit. I actually was entering drafts like crazy in August or whatever with my entire goal was to draft Kyron Williams. That was it. Like, I was drafting. It was like I literally would go into the draft and queue Kyron, Puka, and Tutu, actually, and just say, like, this Ram stuff, these prices are wrong. My whole goal was to draft those guys. So there was no limit to the exposure on them. But like your example on Justin Herbert, I fucking love Justin Herbert. But do I also want access to Purdy 49er stacks, to Dart Giant stacks, to Mahomes Chiefs stacks, to Dak, to do I want access to Allen teams with a cheaper quarterback? Do I want access to Goff? I'm like, yeah, I want those other. I also want those other guys. And so the Justin Herbert exposure just naturally has to come down if you want access to, if there's 15 other quarterbacks you want to draft, you can't draft 50% Herbert. I mean, sort of you can, but it becomes pretty difficult to do it that way, right? You're like, the higher up the board you move, the more difficult it is. It's a weird sort of thing where, like, what's your exposure cap on a player? I don't have one, but I probably have other players that I want exposure to, which naturally limits the exposure cap on this other player that I like. Let's see. That is really funny, by the way. Hey man, my wife is Alyssa Thompson and I live in St. Louis. I'll be right over to get it. It's about half gone, but you can have it. It was free for us. Okay. I should have prepped this a little bit. Corum, Dobbins, Brooks, Tyjae, Singleton, Braylon. Oof, that's pretty rough. But I'm gonna take the Elijah Surratt bring back to the Burrow Chase stack is gonna win me the puppy here. Surratt, Malik Davis and Surratt both, Surratt a little bit more highly drafted than Malik Davis. We saw Braylon Allen as one of the biggest fallers. That's why he sort of jumped off the screen to me there in the 16th round. One of the biggest fallers in these drafts. And so sort of combining a bunch of, again, pulling all of our different levers at once. All right. Let's pop into another draft here while we're just drafting puppies. We're just drafting puppies today. And it is needs 7. God damn it. Just keep getting into drafts with you guys. All right. Out of the 104, we took Chase Pickens, took the Rasheed Faller, Colston Loveland, Mike Evans, Joe Burrow, Dak Prescott, of course, stacked with Jamar Chase and George Pickens. Blake, extreme old school Eric Zero running back team. Blake Corum, J.K. Dobbins, Jake Ferguson, Cowboy stack, Jonathan Brooks, Rashid Shaheed, Omar Cooper, Tyjae Spears, and Nick Singleton. Braylon Allen, Malik Davis, Elijah Surratt. Let me... The 111. Yuck. I agree. T-Rav says, Ice Chai Lattes slap. You are tripping. Dunkin' over Starbucks is a Northeast type thing. I'm not a big Dunkin' fan. I'm not really a Starbucks fan either. It's just the quickest coffee to DoorDash here where we are. We'll still be doing underdog drafts this year. I'm just focusing a little more on DraftKings and drafters. Smooth Criminal Entertainment. Is that what that stands for? ENT? Dirty ENT. Thoughts on 4 tight end Bills in these 18 rounds draft? It's not for me. I think the late tight ends are worse than the super duper late, right? I don't mean late tight ends like round 14. I mean super duper late tight ends are worse than the collective pool. Right? Like I might like Michael Mayer, I might like JT Sanders or Mike Gesicki or Greg Dulcich or whatever, but collectively there are so many bullets you can throw at late wide receivers and late running backs that I don't even particularly love the late tight ends. And then you combine the fact with what are you specifically accomplishing with 4 tight ends that you're not accomplishing with 3, and you are absolutely hurting yourself at either running back, wide receiver, or flex, or all of the above relative to your opponents. Not just sick Justin Jefferson, sign me up. Not just because you have fewer bodies, you have fewer upside, you have fewer outs to you have to survive this gauntlet, right? You have to be good for the whole regular season. So the fewer running backs or wide receivers you take, the more burden there is on those guys. And so then you're going to naturally, if you advance, have the guys who are more popular, right? If you only have 5 running backs, it's generally pretty freaking unlikely. Ooh, okay. I forgot to do, hold on. Damn it. What's the Jefferson Bowers ownership? That's what I want to do. I don't care. I don't care what the ownership is. I'm doing JJ Bowers. Let's see. None of my opponents have Justin Jefferson and Bowers. They all the JJ teams take the running backs on the right side of the board. Is what tends to happen. So there's a unique combo for you. Pull Brock Bowers up with Justin Jefferson at the 1-2 turn. I understand someone will say, well, the math, the tight ends, we project the tight ends from a median perspective to score more points than the late guys. But we don't play a median projection game. And if you have 4 of them, sure, they can hit in the flex, but the upside scenario of a late running back, a late wide receiver is just so far outweighs the upside of whatever Mike Gesicki. How is Spike Week getting opponent draft info? It's the same as you would, right? It's just like if you logged it in a spreadsheet. We don't have access to there's no access to I don't know your info and your opponent's info. I know my opponent's info, right? That's what it takes. My drafts and it logs the teams very, very quickly, much more quickly than you would do within a spreadsheet. That's basically all that it's doing. Some Northeasterners have Tim Hortons. Yeah, based on those are my drafts, right? That's not the collective all drafts all across Underdog. We don't have access to that. Just yours. Keon Coleman thoughts. He's not very good at football, but he is a last round pick. And if something happens to I guess it's technically possible he's still going to run a lot of the routes. And I think that's fair. I think he's got a lot more hurdles to clear in that regard. Obviously, DJ Moore, Khalil Shakir is going to play in the slot in 3 wide receiver sets. They drafted Skylar Bell, who's legit real competition, and they still have Josh Palmer. They still have, Shavers is coming back from an ACL, whatever. They played multiple tight end sets with Knox and Kincaid and even Jackson Hawes a lot. So I think the perk of Keon has always been he's going to run a lot of routes on the Bills, and the Bills rock. Jefferson Bowers. I don't have any T. I don't have any T on those teams. So let's do T Higgins. And so, I think you can, and I have run Zay Lad. I'll just take Josh Allen here. Yeah, I'll just take Josh Allen at pick 38. You can sign me up for that. I can and have run into problems sometimes with this logic. So there is no logic that's foolproof. I'm not claiming this to be the fountain of success in whatever the fuck that means, the fountain of youth, the fountain of success in basketball. But what I sort of coined it as like waterfall players, right? TLC has a song Waterfall, don't go chasing waterfalls. Like when it's sort of like the phrase, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. And like with football players, like, look, Keon has had several opportunities on this offense he's already on, attached to this quarterback he's already attached to. And he's had like a couple of good games in his entire career. His overall profile is horrid, from like just straight up losing playing time because he wasn't good. Efficiency is terrible. Target earning is terrible. Separation metrics, success, all that kind of stuff is bad. And like, at what point do we just say, look, enough is enough, man? Let's try to find the next thing. And that's sort of where I'm at on Keon. I drafted a decent clip of Keon last year because I'm still willing to keep a light on for guys and sort of forgive bad seasons. But at a certain point, I think it's time to move on, stop chasing. Deadhead says, I like the Zay Lad there. This is my very first underdog draft of the year. Damn straight. Zay and Lad are two of my favorite wide receiver picks on the whole board. I'm with you. Zay and Lad are awesome picks. Zay is one of the most underrated. Zay might be the most underrated wide receiver in football. The idea that he can't score touchdowns when he's that good and attached to Lamar Jackson is simply not true. And like, he's never going to score 20 touchdowns. He's not that archetype, but he's one of the best wide receivers in football. Top, 15, something like that. And he is attached to Lamar Jackson with very minimal target competition. There seems like moving to a more modern offense. And that all seems pretty good for Zay Flowers. Worried about Shakir, possible tightropes. I mean, I mean this is absolutely no disrespect to anyone, but I don't take my news from best ball touts. You shouldn't take your news from me. If there's a source that Khalil Shakir that is in the know with the Bills and stuff like that, that knows it, then sounds good. Am I worried about Shakir? I mean, I don't draft a ton of Shakir, if that helps. I was worried about Shakir regardless. Shakir's like important to their offense, though. Say whatever we want about Khalil Shakir as like a fantasy asset. He's also good, like a good slot. He's a good NFL slot receiver. He's not like the top of the food chain among slot receivers, but he's a straight up good slot receiver. Okay, it looks like let's do Christian Watson. Oh, then what's possible? Then what does that mean? Possible surgery. I mean, if the Bills are not worried, I'm not worried about Shakir. It's May. He knows the offense. He has a pretty good rapport with Josh Allen. I tend to be, and sometimes this is wrong, and I'm fully happy to admit that. Ugh, Jadarian Price. I really don't like the price on Jadarian Price. I have not drafted Brian Thomas Jr. yet, I don't think. Let's take a BTJ share. Sets up Lawrence later if I want to do a Lawrence stack. I think it would be bad to have zero Brian Thomas Jr. I tend to, from an injury perspective, not try to play doctor and think about it more in terms of trying to capitalize on other people's fear as it pertains to injuries. Like, what happens so often is like, okay, maybe even Khalil Shakir gets out of the gates slow, but like, who cares? This is the least important weeks in best ball are the first month of the season. But most of our analysis ends up fixating on like sort of the what we call week one brain, where all you can think about is what's their role week one? Are they healthy for week one? Like, and the risks of their role for week one and the risks of that health for week one, like infiltrate our brain to such a degree that we extrapolate it over the course of the whole season, right? Like, oh my God, Malik Neighbors might not be ready for week one. We can't draft him in the third round. Unbelievable. And it's like, dude, you have 7 other wide receivers on your team. No one's on bye. And you know he might not play week one. So draft accordingly. This is not redraft. This is not cumulative scoring. Like, it's best ball. Not every first round pick is even going to put up a huge game in week one or week two or week three. So, like, what are we even doing? You only need to finish top 2 of 12 over 14 weeks. And we talk constantly about how everything is backloaded. The late season is the most important. Week 17 is air quotes all that matters, all that kind of stuff. And then we're like, oh man, but I don't know if he's gonna be ready for week one. Can't draft him anymore. It's like, why? Week 17 is all that matters, or it's not. And so it's not that the injury stuff is never a concern. It's not that I'm never worried. Of course, I am. We did a show with Leone last year or 2 years ago. Corain and I did a show with Leone where we did like an "Aren't You Worried?" And Leone said it perfectly. It's like when everybody asks, like, aren't you worried about any player in any situation and any injury and the answer is always yes. He's like, I live in crippling fear of all the injuries and the down seasons and the target competition. Like, yes, I'm worried about all of it. Everyone should be worried about all of the stuff, but we're not. If all we did was run away from every player that we were worried about, we wouldn't fucking draft anybody. Because we should be worried about all these guys. Like, I could go down the list of every single guy that's on the screen right now and talk about very clear and obvious reasons why I'm worried about them. And so we can't run from all the worries, but we are obsessed with the injury worries. And it's like, look, it's like George Kittle. Aren't you worried about George Kittle's injury? Fuck yes. And I think he's way overpriced because of that concern. There's other players who also have their own injury concerns, but are underpriced because the market is totally afraid of them with that injury, right? So like, I want to play that game. I want to try to find the injuries that the market is like, we're cool. Like Tucker Kraft, no one cares that he tore his ACL. George Kittle, no one cares that he tore his Achilles. That's hyperbole. Like, some people care, but the market as a whole doesn't care about that stuff. But like Khalil Shakir, like, I don't care. If the market's gonna like completely fade Khalil Shakir, I'll get a little bit of him. Oh wow, Parker comes back at 83 to go with BTJ. Now, I would very much love for Deadhead. You're in the chat. Let's play nice. Okay, he took Herbert. Let's play nice. Because this all set up absolutely beautifully for another insane Erik zero running back team. Trevor Lawrence. Bingo, bango. I'm not even trying to draft these zero running back teams. Can anybody explain the BTJ market fade? Parker Washington had one good season in 3 years. Yeah, Brian Thomas Jr. has only had one good season in 2 years. I could use that same logic too. Parker Washington's season last year was elite. You can't just say like, oh, one good season in 3 years makes it sound like he did it 3 years ago. And like, that's the DJ Moore case, right? DJ Moore goes much higher, and that's what people keep telling me is like, oh, well, he used to be good, and now he has Josh Allen. So it's fine. Take him in the 4th round. He got hurt and missed 3 games. That's fine. Brian Thomas Jr. goes, I just took him in the 60s. He goes 60th, like 60th overall. The market's not baiting him. The market's giving him, and they're saying, yeah, okay. You were awesome as a rookie. Really, you were only awesome with Mac Jones as a rookie. And you sucked last year. Oh, it's okay. We can, right? No one else has ever played hurt in the NFL before, for sure, and still produced, right? The injury stuff is like I'm willing to give him a pass. That's why I have him ranked like in the top 70. But I don't. That's one of those like, aren't you worried? I could make it the easiest "aren't you worried" about Brian Thomas Jr. case. He didn't really earn targets in college. He got to benefit from single coverage on the opposite side of Malik Neighbors as really a one-trick pony in college. And he was really effective at it with Jaden fucking Daniels throwing him the ball. He had one of the best wide receivers on the planet drawing all the coverage on one side, with Jaden Daniels winning the Heisman here at quarterback. And he got to feast on the shitty corners on the other side. And he just ran a bunch of go routes, and he was awesome at it. And then he was okay as a rookie until Mac Jones took over. And then he had a bunch of big games alongside Mac Jones. And the rest of his sample in the NFL has been bad. And so, am I willing to give him a pass and take him some? Yeah, I am. I just did. But am I willing to just write everything off and say, well, Parker only had 1 good season? Like, Brian Thomas Jr. only had like 1 good half a season in the NFL. And Parker's season last year, just like writing off his 1 good season. Like, so are we writing off Ladd's rookie year? Are we writing off Brian Thomas Jr.'s rookie year? No, of course not. So we shouldn't write off Parker Washington's good year last year either, of which he was 12th in yards per route run amongst all wide receivers. He was basically as efficient as Jamar Chase last year. Parker Washington was. He wasn't just good, he was outstanding. Alongside Brian Thomas Jr., alongside Jacoby Myers. The offense got better when Travis Hunter went off the field and Parker Washington became the wide receiver 1 on the team. They probably should have beat the Bills in the playoffs. But I like the Jags. Yeah, so this is like Parker didn't start going off until Jacoby. So they added more target competition, and Parker Washington got better. That seems like a good thing. BTJ wasn't out. BTJ played most of the season. And he sucked. It's okay. You can still like Brian Thomas Jr. I'm not trying to be like, oh, I hate, but you see how I can make the case softer coverage. This is insane. You can't prove that. You're just throwing things out at the wall. How do you know he had softer coverage? You're not watching the all 22 of all of these games and charting the coverages, right? It's like, it's okay to say Brian Thomas Jr. sucked last year, and maybe there's a reason for it. It's okay. It's okay. You can still like him and draft him. Let's see. Okay, I probably need to get some running backs, huh? Let's do Dobbins again. Or, okay, let's start with Dobbins. Make sure we get a guy here. BTJ versus Parker Washington would be real interesting to see play out. Jack's hate. I mean, they didn't hate Parker Washington, but then he ran hot as shit. So that's another phrasing. It's like he ran hot as shit. No, he played awesome. He played awesome, right? He ran hot. So did Brian Thomas Jr. run hot as a rookie? You see how we can use specific phrasing to make our argument sound a certain way that seems more appealing. I'm going to go take Dalton Kincaid and do a similar structure to what we did last time and lock in my tight ends and quarterbacks. This is a great point. BTJ was throwing games because Lawrence did that commercial with Travis Hunter. Yeah, I'm totally fine. I just drafted both. I just drafted Brian Thomas Jr. and Parker Washington. I think they can both be fine, but it's one of those cases. I actually think, like, we could land. This is the best thing about talking about all these players and why I enjoy doing multiple hours of streaming most days out of the week is you can land on the same thing. And if all you did was just, here's my top 5 players that I like to draft, or here's my top 5 fades, it's like, that's cool and all for like the redraft community, I'm sure. But what you learn and the way you learn and get better is by having these discussions and these debates and these back and forths. Like, I'm still going to draft some Brian Thomas Jr. I think there is very clear case that like maybe he reverts back to what that rookie season was. Maybe the injury did hold him back. Maybe, there's a variety of different reasons that things could have gone south for him. And I'm willing to bet on a bounce back on X percentage of my teams. I'm also willing to bet that the Parker emergence was real on X percent of my teams. But I'm on another percent of my teams, I'm willing to bet it wasn't real. You can land in the same place on like, I'm going to take X percentage of both of these guys, whatever. But if you don't like discuss the process and how you land on those decisions, and if you don't, on basically all of these players, if you don't at least acknowledge and dive into like the full profile and the full range of outcomes, you're just doing yourself a disservice and probably just being anchored to whatever initial take that you had. And that's easy to have happen. It happens to me sometimes too. But like, if you just say, right, when we just say like, why does everybody hate Brian Thomas Jr.? He's such a smash. And it's like, okay, well, let me lay out all the negatives. Because these are factual negatives. Like, there's factual downside risk with Brian Thomas Jr. Doesn't make him a bad pick. It just doesn't mean like we should never ignore that about any player, no matter how much we like them, or we shouldn't ignore the upside case about a player that we hate either, right? Christian McCaffrey, I could see, I'm not taking him because I think the downside risk and the fade is more powerful than drafting him. But could he fucking put me in a goddamn locker in 6 months? Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. He could put me in a locker in 6 months. Okay. I'm not taking Khalil Shakir because I've been told he had his leg amputated. So let's do Rachaad White. He is the dustiest bringback of all time to my Jags week 17 stack, and I need a lot of running backs. Unbelievable deadhead. All right, I'm gonna take Tyrone Tracy. I was gonna take Keaton on. I was gonna take Keaton there, but deadhead is cooking over here at the in these drafts, straight cooking. Thank you, sir. I'm excited. I think it's because Alyssa T's Starbucks. Maybe I need to get more iced chai lattes. Maybe they're good for streaming. Shout out Bree, thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate it. Well, glad to have you back. First time I've seen you this year. I'm excited that you're back. And he says your show is one of the funnest parts of the process. Thank you for what you do. I'm not good at I could not possibly be more thankful for those words. I mean, it really means a lot. As someone who is like, I have no aspirations of like being, Matthew Berry or anything like that. I'm just trying to have fun, stream some drafts, talk about stuff that's fun to talk about, and of course, run a business. But I want to just enjoy myself and talk ball. I'm glad that the few amount of people that it can resonate with, that can enjoy it, that means a lot. As does you just bought me my next iced chai latte for tomorrow. With that being said, for anybody that is here hanging out, if you guys could hit thumbs up, it does really help on the videos. And if you're new and you're unfamiliar, Tuesday through Fridays, every single week, every morning at 11 a.m. Eastern, this is what you get: iced chai lattes, Bree making some fun comments, some very kind comments, some debates about Brian Thomas Jr. and the like, Khalil Shakir, leg amputations, and lots of best ball drafts. But tomorrow on Fridays, we do something fun. And of course, I'll also be able to give away a free ticket tomorrow to the Drafters main event at the end of the show tomorrow. And on Fridays, we do what I like to call Freestyle Friday, where we're just going to hop into some drafts and the chat comes up with some what I like to call prompts that are some strategic ideas that I have to implement into the drafts. For anybody that is unfamiliar, I stole it from the freestyle rapper Harry Mack. I'm a big fan of Harry Mack. And what he does is he freestyle raps for people, but he actually, unlike some of the fake rappers out there, does it completely off the top of the dome. And oh God, Tajay again. Look, I'm sorry. How about Dylan Sampson on this team? Just change it up a little bit. But Harry Mack does freestyle raps, but where he asks people to give him words to use, right? So that he actually has to implement the words off of the top of the dome and so that's what we do on Fridays. The chat gives me words, if you will, right? Zero running back or robust running back, or we've had like you have to name the college that the player went to before you drafted them. So like I can't draft anybody that I don't know where they went to college. I don't love this. I'm just gonna literally go take my boy Flanoy here and close, because I might just only take 6 wide receivers on this team, and because my running backs are looking awfully rough, and I'm gonna need a lot of scratch off lottery tickets on this team. But yeah, so tomorrow, Freestyle Friday, come join us 11 a.m. Eastern, and every Tuesday through Friday. We'll get through this draft and we'll do one more puppy. They traded up to draft a 2-way wide receiver, gave De'Ami Brown money, then BTJ and strange injuries. They traded so they traded up to draft Travis Hunter because not because they don't believe, because they like you. When you have an opportunity to take what you think is a franchise altering player who plays corner, by the way, I don't like, they kept Parker Washington around. They've spoken highly of Parker Washington for years. He wasn't good enough. And Brian Thomas Jr. was very good. So I understand what you're saying. I think you can. So do they not think highly of Travis Hunter? Because they traded for Jacoby Myers, and now they have 3 wide receivers, right? People were making the case that Travis Hunter is so good he's going to play wide receiver, but all they did was add a bunch of wide receivers, and they drafted 2 more wide receivers, and they drafted more tight ends to play more 12 personnel and stuff. It's like, so that 2-way wide receiver that we're using as a case against Parker Washington, I can make the same case that they don't like him at wide receiver now, right? They let corners walk so that Travis Hunter can play corner, and they invested in wide receiver. I understand the premise of what you're saying. I think it's hyperbole to sort of make a point, which I do as well. Doc says, go watch Harry Mack's latest walk through a park in New York. I mean, the greatest thing about the Harry Mack freestyles is just watching people's reaction to them. You know, it's sort of like doing. You ever see the videos of like someone doing like magic to an animal, or like playing a funny prank on an animal, or something like a panda bear or whatever? They're very silly, and watching their reaction just like in amazement, or to a child, a very small child, you do something crazy that their brain like can't comprehend, and just like the amazement, the way they like lose their emotions and stuff. It's like, that's what this dude does with just coming up with rhymes off the top of his head. People just like lose their fucking mind. They're like, what did he just do? Like, how did he just come up with that? It's very entertaining for anybody that's into that kind of stuff. All right, I'm going to take my boy Ray Davis, who obviously is also a Buffalo Bill. I'm going to take Emmanuel Wilson here, who I quite like actually, but is a specifically, I think, a good, like on a super extreme zero running back team. Jadarian Price is a rookie who I think will be fine and is going to get his work. But Zach Charbonnet is obviously recovering from a very late season ACL injury. I think Emmanuel Wilson is a solid football player, unspectacular but solid. I think we can squeeze some early season production out of Emmanuel Wilson on a team that clearly needs it. A team that very clearly needs it, given this particular group of running backs. Shiv says Colin Johnson retires from the NFL. Sad times. I thought Colin Johnson would be all right in the NFL. Is it you like these guys' profiles, or you're betting on chaos for the zero running back build? A little bit of both. Dobbins, White, Tracy sounds scary, but I can make individual cases. Yeah, I mean that's what any mid to late round running back is scary. That's like why they go in the mid to late rounds, right? J.K. Dobbins is probably going to get the first carry for the Denver Broncos. He was the lead back by a country mile for most of last season. Jonah Coleman is whatever. RJ Harvey was bad last year. And they said repeatedly, as soon as free agency opened, their number one priority was to go get J.K. Dobbins back. J.K. Dobbins was a priority to the Denver Broncos. And I think he's still a fine football player. And on a team that needs, especially early running back production and some stable floor, plus a little bit of upside, seems like the dream on a team like that. Tyrone Tracy clearly proved for 2 seasons that he can play at the NFL level. Yes, he's backing up Cam Skattebo. Cam Skattebo destroyed his leg last season. Cam Skattebo could be a little bit slow out of the gates himself, and Tracy has contingent value. Cam Skattebo is also not going to play every single snap the whole season. Rachaad White is one of the worst runners I've ever seen in the NFL, but Washington doesn't exactly have a strong backfield. Bill didn't exactly prove he's some stud last year. Keyshawn Allen was a late round pick who's a pretty flawed player himself. And Rachaad White is one of the better passing down backs in the league. He's an elite pass protector. He's a good receiver out of the backfield in terms of catching the football, and being in the right place and stuff. Once the ball's in his hands, he's maybe not the most exciting player ever, but those are high value touches. He could absolutely have strong games, a strong season. Right. So I like all 3 of those guys individually. They're not like going to be my highest owned players. But on teams like this, on certain structures, certain players, like the Emmanuel Wilson thing, certain players fit your structures in very particular ways, right? Like if I had multiple early backs, I'm not taking those guys because they don't fit and I don't need them. And I probably need something else. But on this particular team, that's exactly what I'm looking for. Okay. So Mike Washington is one of the biggest fallers and is a completely and utterly contingent value bet to Ashton Genty, but we're taking 8 freaking running backs on this team, and so we need a little bit of the straight, pure contingent value upside here. Deadhead takes Malik Davis. Of course he does. And, okay. Then I'm going to do, I do like Vidal. Let's see here. Let's just take a look at my ranks here. How about actually, how about a LaQuint Allen? I think I did this yesterday. But I have the Jag stack, lowly drafted, right? Very infrequently drafted. LaQuint Allen fits the Jag stack, passing down back, so maybe a little bit more correlation with Lawrence. And I don't have either Tootin or what's his face, Chris Rodriguez on this team. So let's do one more puppy. I'm going to get in there right now. We are going to take a super duper quick break that just only needs one more, and I will be right back to finish out this stream with this final puppy draft. Hey guys, if you are playing best ball this year, I promise you're going to want to check out Spike Week Premium. We're the very first company building an entire suite of best ball tools, everything you need to have to crush your best ball drafts. I like to call it your best ball co-pilot. We have the very first overlay tool, the very first portfolio tool, and a brand new draft optimizer. So the Draft Hacker overlays, our Draft IQ portfolio tool, you can look under every nook and cranny of your teams and your opponent's teams to find an edge in your drafts. You can optimize your drafts based upon the plan that you have with our draft optimizers, your target exposures, players you want to draft together or don't want to draft together, stacks you want to target. And of course, with the Draft Hacker overlays, you can customize every single thing you want to see on your screen while you're drafting. Playoff schedules, exposures, combinatorial ownerships, projected ownerships, stats about what these players did the previous year, all sorts of different stuff. And those are just the tools. We cover almost every sport that these best ball sites offer with rankings and strategy content. You can also get access to our premium Discord. Thousands of best ball sickos hanging out every day, 24/7, 365, talking strategy, player takes, having a little bit of fun. Our weekly lab call that we do on Wednesday evenings where you can hang out and talk shop with me, the other Spike Week members, and the Spike Week personalities. Everything for just one low price, $39.99 a month or $200 for a year, gets you absolutely everything that we offer. Those tools, the rankings, content, Discord for one low price. Come hang out with us this summer. I promise you won't regret it. Come join the Spike Week Sicko gang. And now, let's get back to the show. All right, we are back. We started the quick break there a little bit later than usual, but we got the 104 and we took Puka Nacua. Fly. I want to be done with this Hunter BTJ thing, but they signed Jacoby Myers to an extension, right? A 3-year extension. That's what I'm talking about. They traded for Jacoby Myers and extended him. They didn't have to extend him, right? They brought him back. Parker had the breakout. They already had Brian Thomas Jr. and they already had Travis Hunter, and they extended Jacoby Myers. There was no reason to extend him, right? If they thought Travis Hunter was just going to play both sides of the football on every single snap. Did not realize Tajay is only 25 years old. Dude, it's crazy. He also only has one ACL, which is hilarious. But yeah, I love Tajay. He's one of those guys that's pretty fascinating to me where I'm exceptionally confident he's like a good, above average, good, whatever word. Like he's not a superstar NFL running back, but I'm like really confident. He's still young. He was outrageously productive in college. He's been productive every time he's been given the chance. Every time he's been given the chance to take a little bit more of the backfield on a bad team. On a bad team, he's been productive. He's a good receiver. He can catch passes. He's pretty explosive. He's elusive in the open field. He's not huge, so he's not, going to be some pile mover type back or whatever. But like, I'm just like pretty freaking sure he's good. And I'm pretty freaking sure that he's going to play like at least some form of a role. He kind of always has when healthy. And so at the super cheap price, like everybody's just sort of given up on that dude. Puka. Yeah, sure. Let's do London. Puka London. Bring it tomorrow, Warehouse. Only players connected to Kevin Stefanski in 6 steps or less. That one's going to be very, very difficult. How do you feel about teams like that where you drafted 2 quarterbacks with the same bye week? I don't sweat it too much. I understand why someone would. How I like to think about it is it's not a priority. It's not something I'm targeting, and it's not something I'm gonna do frequently. But if you don't ever draft, if you completely ignore that combination of quarterback, you're boxing yourself out of certain combinations of players and stacks and all that kind of stuff in your portfolio. And so, like I said, I completely understand the nice neighbors. Puka London neighbors. Hell yes. That's beautiful. So I'm also not going to completely avoid it. I'm not gonna, like I said, it's not like a primary target. I'm gonna avoid it more than I'm going to draft it for sure by a country mile. But I also don't want to avoid it. And like think about this is understandable, but like zoom out. The only thing that you're losing is like 15 to 20 points in 1 week. But in every other week, you can gain a little, right? You can gain now you have, instead of having 2 weeks where you only have one quarterback, those 2 weeks you can make up a couple of points in those weeks. And so like most of your advancements are not going to come down to 10 points or whatever. And I think it matters less than we think it does, because what tends to happen, I think, in best ball is when something is easy to understand how it could be harmful or how it could be good, we really fixate on that. I do too. Like when you say, "Oh my God, you're losing," like you're going to take a 0 at quarterback that week. Like that's terrible. It's like, okay, sure, but 2 weeks, I'm going to project to gain some points. And most matchups are not going to come down to 10 points or whatever. Now, I don't want to like have my whole team on bye in the same week. I would ideally not like to have quarterback and tight end, but like I've advanced teams with two quarterbacks on the same bye. I've advanced teams with two tight ends on the same bye without having a third one. Your team's going to be better in all the other weeks and significantly worse in that 1 week. If you draft a really good team, it's not going to matter. Is it possible you lose that team because of that down week where you lose 15 to 20 points? It's possible. It's possible. It's also possible it doesn't matter. And so I'm not going to overly fixate on, right? We barely make money for advancing. I'm trying to win the whole thing. If I have to sacrifice a small little sliver of advance rate expectation to build combinations of players that nobody else has, when we don't even really know if it's going to matter or not, you can sign me up to do that. Just on a really, really small amount of teams, right? Scattaboo in the 4th. Of course, we have neighbors already, so that's fun. Puka London neighbors. Yeah, and Richard says 3 of my 4 tight ends have the same bye. Didn't realize it till the end of the draft. Terrence Ferguson would be our only active tight end. See, like I don't care about that, but that's also the flip side. Is there's other teams in your draft that like are gonna so they separate out their bye weeks, and they're still gonna get bad. Like Terrence Ferguson is probably not going to put up some like meaningful amount of points. You know, most of the scoring is driven through spikes, not through floor and usable weeks. But we really, really worry about the floor and the usable weeks. Just the super like lame answer to the like, aren't you worried about? I haven't drafted Lamar today yet, have I? Let's do Lamar. The super like cheesy jock bro answer to the aren't you worried about your bye weeks or whatever is like, just draft a better fucking team, score more points in the other weeks, stop worrying about losing 15 points in 1 week. Or like the tight end thing, like the average tight end scores like 8 points. Like who cares? If you lose by 8 points, you should have drafted a better team. It's the cool bro answer I could give. Goddamn, Jordan. Thank you for spelling it correctly. Shout out Jordan Vanek. Everybody needs to go follow Jordan. I've had the pleasure of talking to him a bunch over the course of the last year, and he's a brilliant football mind. This is too funny. Lots of Travion. I will say all of the misery that was most of the Travion Henderson rookie season, those like 3 games or whatever where Ramondre missed, God, it made it all worth it. You know what I mean? It's like sports fans. It's like, this is how I felt when the St. Louis Blues won the Stanley Cup. It was like, this is probably how like Knicks fans are sort of feeling right now. Is like all of this misery, all of this terrible, like these terrible moments, these letdowns, these shitty seasons. It's like all worth it when you reach the pinnacle. And when Travion Henderson was like the running back 1 over like a month in fantasy, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but when he was just smashing without Ramondre, it was awesome. It made all of it worth it. I certainly wish it would have been at a better time for best ball purposes, because I drafted like 25% Travion Henderson. And I actually advanced a bunch of Travion Henderson. But nonetheless, it was still really, really fucking fun for those few weeks. Bryce says, in a redraft league, would you go Ladd, Burden, Waddle, JMO? So do I have to pick one of them? I've them ranked Burden and Ladd. Burden, I have ranked Burden over Ladd, but they're very, very close. But it would be one of those two for me, if that's what you're asking. If it's the order, it would be, hold on. Wow, this is a hell of a Carnell Tate price. I would take Burden, but Burden versus Ladd is a total coin flip. If you have a lean between those two, and if I had to rank them, it would be Burden, Ladd, JMO, Waddle. And I know that's a little bit different than consensus. I think Waddle is a little bit higher for some, but that's my stance. I'm not a big fan of watching his ass waddle off the field every first or second quarter of every week. Just like I do not particularly enjoy watching Travion Henderson get yanked off the field and play 2 more snaps the rest of the game. Watching Antonio Gibson getting touches because they're punishing Travion Henderson. Like also Vrabel punishing someone else for their mistakes in life and like being a total hardo about it. Like, go ahead and miss me with that, fucking Mike. Like holding this big grudge against the 22-year-old who screwed up, given the things that you were doing at your age. Stop. Look at this. All that BTJ conversation drove. Everybody was listening. They said, "Damn, Eric's right. Brian Thomas Jr. does suck." And I did it all just so I could get my first 2 Underdog BTJ shares. Pick 76. Okay. I think I have Herbert as my QB3 this year. Mike McDaniel with that group is going to be so fun. Please give me a healthy O-line. Dude, I fucking love Justin Herbert. I don't have him as at QB3 because, you know, the best ball stuff is a little bit different. I don't want to take him over all these guys every single time. But I think if you put a gun to my head and you said who scores the most points, him or Drake May, I'm for sure taking Justin Herbert. Him or Joe Burrow, I'm taking Justin Herbert. Him or Caleb, I'm taking Justin Herbert. So maybe I need to move him ahead of Caleb. But nonetheless, you see, I have him well ahead of ADP. And then, hold on, I can show. Go to my draft board. So other beautiful that I was looking at it right earlier in the show when there was questions about the opponent data stuff. Obviously, that's just, you can see the opponents here on this row, and then but then your individual exposures and stuff like that over here. So where is I have 25% Herbert on Underdog. Let's go to DraftKings because I think it's higher. That's just the milli. Which, that's fine. That's fine. 40. Ooh, oh my. Even I didn't know it was that high. So 40% Herbert. So call it 35% Justin Herbert thus far. I love him. If I had to flag plant a quarterback this year, it would be Justin Herbert, and it's not particularly close. Mike McDaniel, the offensive line is, oh my God. Siri just found a bunch of Justin Herbert stuff on the internet for me. Just what I need. The offensive line, I mean, Herbert is just awesome. There's no talent concerns. Mike McDaniel, I think, is going to be reinvigorated in like being able to use his mad scientist brain in a new situation with a quarterback who can throw the ball further than 15 yards down the field, can actually move. With those weapons, man, god damn. What I particularly love about Herbert is the Lawrence again. Hold on, let's see. I mean, I think I'm supposed to take Lawrence again here. Let's do it. What can get scary sometimes. So, like, compare the Chargers to the Atlanta Falcons, right? I'm setting aside the quarterback issues, which are, I mean, the difference between Herbert and Tua Penix is like the difference between me and fucking Wemby. Like, when these things are not comparable. But the offensive line is better, and the offensive line just went through the worst season they could ever possibly go through last year. So you got even like some of the backups and stuff got added reps. But you have this, so like maybe Bijan and Drake London are better than than Mamarian Hampton and Lab McConkey. But the overall depth of target, there's like so many fail safes in the Chargers offense. Like, okay, if something happens to Hampton, that's not ideal. But guess what? Here comes more Keaton Mitchell. Here comes more Kamani Vidal, who was completely fine last year. I am going to take Wan'Dale, actually. I'm trying to get, I know this is ahead of ADP, but I haven't taken him yet, and I have him ranked higher than where he goes, and I have Carnell Tate, obviously. And no, I don't mind taking those guys without Cam Ward. But so you have Keaton, Kamani Vidal, like, doesn't really matter what happens injury-wise at running back. Like, I love Ladd, but like, oh, they even add a Brennan Thompson, right, to take the lid off of the defense. If something happens to Ladd, look, QJ was pretty good last year. I'm pretty excited about Trey Harris. Even Keandre Lambert-Smith. Like, if something happens to somebody, Keandre Lambert-Smith has to go play. That's fine. It's not, I don't want KLS out there like being my wide receiver one. But like, if something happens to Drake London, how the fuck are the Falcons going to move the ball? If something happens to Bijan, how are they going to move the ball? So it's like comparing the Chargers specifically as it pertains to Justin Herbert is like, it almost doesn't matter what happens. He's always going to have good weapons. He's going to have good coaching. The offensive line should be fine regardless. And that just feels like the perfect slam dunk fantasy pick. Thank you. I think it's a pretty fun site. We keep adding. I have some improvements and everything I want to make, and I haven't been able. We've been doing so much, and I've been doing so much streaming. I'm trying to get back to writing some more. So we're gonna continuing to make site upgrades and all that different kind of stuff coming over the course of the summer. Warehouse says, I have uneasy feelings for Ladd after Mike McDaniel said QJ is a DNA replicant of Julio Jones and Andre Johnson. Mike McDaniel is notorious sarcastic hyperbole, loving his players. I think he's going to like Ladd just fine. He can like QJ. I mean, look, Ladd looks like a little fucking water boy, and QJ does look like Julio Jones and Andre Johnson. Sure. Well, we can do C-Rod along on the Jags stack. We did LeQuint last time, and I've already got my fair share of Tootin. But yeah, he's going to like Ladd just fine. Why the comparison to the Falcons? Because the Chargers, if something happens to any of the players on the Chargers, right, which is an issue for quarterbacks. Look at what happened to Justin Herbert last year. The offensive line falls apart and they have no depth and it's a disaster. Look at what happens to offenses look at what happens to the Jets when Garrett Wilson isn't out there. Look at what happens to the Bengals when Jamar Chase isn't out there. Look at, if Justin Jefferson misses time, the Vikings are in a little bit better situation. But like you remove Puka from the Rams, like that's a problem. You remove Tyreek and Waddle from the Dolphins, it's a problem. The Chargers have so much depth everywhere that they have all these fail safes at like legitimately every single position. Which one of these running backs do we want? Let's oh no. Okay, we got him. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. Jonathan Brooks. Ladd needs to start wearing capris. I love that. They have the perfect backup. Bijan Robinson. Yeah, you'll have to forgive me. I'm full transparency for anybody that uses the rankings. Later today, I'm going to be moving Brian Robinson down in the rankings. We had a good conversation last night, sort of about the Falcons along this exact line. Like, so Bijan goes down. You're like, Brian Robinson is obviously going to get more work, and that's great for a contingent value bet. But like, how are they going to score without Bijan? Like, Bijan and Drake London are the entire engine of the offense. If you remove them from the offense, Brian Robinson cannot replicate what Bijan Robinson can do. So like, yeah, he's going to get some more touches, but like, what is that even worth if the offense is so bad? It's funny. Yeah, Mike McDaniel is a cartoon character, but he can sure coach some offense. Chargers going to look great with a modern offense. I am with you. This is hilarious. I didn't know he did this. I knew he pounded the table for multiple different guys. Like he pounded the table for Keaton and Brennan Thompson. I knew that, but I didn't know he printed out the pictures of Keaton and Alec Ingold's faces and put them on the GM's desk. Supposedly, everything you read from like the Dolphins, like blogs and stuff like that, they all seem to think that like the team is basically doing everything to give Mike McDaniel whatever he wants on offense, which is pretty sweet. It's not like Brian Robinson is that good anyways, says Richard. Amen. Brian Robinson is the most mediocre ass running back of all time. Yeah, we'll take Isaiah Likely here. Goes with my Giants stack. I should have probably taken Mark Andrews earlier, but that's okay. I'm kind of shocked Gadsden is going where he's going. You see, I have him 169th. He's still going 138. Scat, C-Rod, and Jonathan Brooks. This is not a bad tight end zone. I really don't love Hunter Henry. Sadiq, I have 100% of my really? 100% of my likely teams have Sadiq. That doesn't seem good. So Chig plays my Jags. Let's do Chig. Chig plays my Jag stack in week 17. There's a tiebreaker for you. And I need tight end. I agree. But that's this, yeah, exactly. That's an Njoku, right? You're like, dude, they sign even like Charlie Kohler is like not he's like, and Jordan can speak to this. Like Charlie Kohler was a pretty good receiver in college. He's viewed and he is sort of functionally now just like a NFL blocking tight end, right? He's like Daniel Bellinger functionally in the NFL, Foster Moreau, whatever. That he's that archetype of player. But in college, like he was a totally competent pass catcher at Iowa State. Like he was good, and now he's just relegated to being a sixth offensive lineman. That's their third guy in their tight end room, or whether it's Njoku or Gadsden or whatever. So like, no matter what happens, you have either Gadsden and Njoku or Kohler on the field at wide receivers. Like the fifth option is Keandre Lambert Smith at running back. The third option is Kamani Vidal. Like that's insane. And that's before we get to the good. Those aren't even the good guys. Like not all the good guys are going to get hurt. Knock on wood. What if a Penix, Brian Robinson, Austin Hooper stack is what you need? Yeah. For those that don't know, yes, Austin Hooper is now on the Austin Hooper, Brian Robinson have to be the most fitting fucking examples of what we're talking about with the Atlanta Falcons. Like, because I didn't even mention like what if something happens to Kyle Pitts? Like, it's Austin Hooper's corpse out there. It's not great. If you squint, you can't tell the difference between Bijan and Brian. I have no issue with this. I like to pair my strong QB1 with a naked Malik Willis, and which is always just funny. Oh shoot, I'm on the clock. Hold on. Let's do Algier actually. Willis gives you a safe floor with the rushing stuff, pretty high ceiling. Yep, and he should have a long leash with the Dolphins. One would think so. Yeah, I still like Malik Willis, just not as much, and I don't want to anchor. Like I was so excited for Malik Willis in the pre-draft stuff, like the big board and whatever, and so it's easy to let that still sort of seep into your process this summer. Like it's a new game, it's over, move on. You were hoping for Malik Willis to land in a really good spot, and he landed in about the worst fucking possible spot that he could land. And it is what it is. How about this? Let's take Tank Bigsby. Get the little Saquon backup. So Scattaboo, C-Rod, Jonathan Brooks, Tyler Algier, and Tank Bigsby. Okay. Lamar currently unstacked. I'm gonna take one of the trash bin Ravens wide receivers. So I have 3 picks left. One of them is going to be one of those guys in the last round, and then I need another tight end, and so I need another running back. Okay, tight end, running back in whichever order, and then one of the Surratt, Bateman, Jacoby Lane, and even Tez. I'm including Tez Walker in that. I think the order in terms of exposure that I'll have those guys is Surratt, Lane, Bateman, Tez. But I could be convinced to flip Bateman. I could be convinced. I'm still a homer for Tez Walker, so it makes me want to draft more of him. I'm not drafting 0 of him, but I would probably put him 4th on that list. Yes, yeah. If Charlie Kohler was in this year's draft, the Jaguars might have traded into the first to get him. They drafted a far shittier version of what Charlie Kohler has become in the second round. So, yeah, Jake Bobo. I do miss Jake Bobo is basically a tight end. Oh my gosh. There's the difference between best ball and home leagues. Someone drafting Brian Robinson instead of Bijan in the first round on accident. This is a great way to put it. The weapons are diabolical in Mike McDaniel's hands. The things that they're going to do. I just want to, I would like to attend a Chargers practice, I think, and watch like what McDaniel all does and schemes up and everything. I'm about to get a lot of Jalen Hurts after going through the schedule. Shout out to my buddy Tony, aka Felix. I've come around a little bit on Hurts. A little. Not a lot, but a little. Okay, what did I say? Right. Let's do my boy Pat Freiermuth here. That's my favorite late tight end. And then we need a running back. Let's actually use the queue so I'm not fucking scrambling like an idiot here. Justice Hill makes some sense. We'll come down to Ray Davis, Malik Davis, and Justice Hill. I have absolute gobs and gobs of Ray Davis and Malik Davis, of course. Justice Hill naturally makes sense with Lamar. I don't love it so much on Underdog. I mean, it's okay, but I don't love it so much on Underdog. I don't need quite as much early running back production. Let's just stick to Malik. And then go put the Ravens wide receivers in the queue. Surratt, Bateman, Tez, and Lane. I have, what percent do I have of these guys? 6% Surratt, 6% Lane. I haven't taken Bateman or Tez yet on Underdog. I know I've taken them on DraftKings and Drafters. So maybe I'll take one of them this time. That's that's a good idea. Or a wheel. I'll get one of the wheels and spin it for stuff like this one. Richard says put all 4 of the Ravens guys on a dartboard, and whichever one you hit, you draft. That's not a bad idea. What are your Hurts concerns? Asked Danny. Great question. So first of all, Jalen Hurts hasn't been very good for the last couple of seasons. So apparently Jalen Hurts straight up asked them last year to do less design runs with him. He doesn't like to throw over the middle of the field. He's about to lose AJ Brown. Like, they don't throw the ball very much. If he's not a willing runner, if the tush push thing is getting not quite as effective, they did draft another quarterback that has me like sort of concerned about the tush push thing. That's like a really galaxy brained, aren't you worried part of it? But nonetheless, while we're fleshing out our Jalen Hurts thoughts, I just think he's been a pretty poor passer. They've been pretty anemic on offense, and they're losing AJ Brown. And I like Mekhi Lemon, and Devontae Smith is a good football player. But we're taking away AJ Brown from an offense that already really struggled to throw the ball. And Jalen Hurts there's like beat reporter reports that he actively doesn't want to run, at least not on designed runs, and he didn't scramble that much. There's just quite a bit of red flags. And this is someone who drafted a ton of Eagles last year. And I promise it's not biased stuff, but I certainly watched them a lot. And it's been pretty rough. So I think like just sort of, it's not that I don't think they can bounce back. What did I say? I've done. Let's rip a Tez team. Let's have some fun. Rashad Bateman is not fun. Speaking of low, if we're doing low, let's really fucking get low owned with the last pick of this draft. If that was the goddamn point of this show, like, come on. All right, I think I forgot to run down last team, but this one: Puka Nacua, Drake London, Malik Neighbors. Goddamn, that's beautiful. Cam Scatterbu, Lamar Jackson, Carnell Tate, Brian Thomas Jr., Trevor Lawrence, Wan'Dale Robinson, Chris Rodriguez, Jonathan Brooks, Isaiah Likely, Chiga Okonkwo, Tyler Algier, Tank Bigsby, Pat Freiermuth, Malik Davis, Tez Walker. That, my friends, is how it's done in the Timebox tournament, like the puppy. That is going to do it for us here today. I thank you guys for hanging out. This was a ton of fun. If you give a thumbs up on the way out, if you could subscribe to the channel, of course, all that type stuff, you'll get notified, blah, 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 blah. Tomorrow I'll be back 11 a.m. Eastern for Freestyle Friday. If you would like to draft some teams with me, I will be here every Tuesday through Friday. And tomorrow we're definitely going to be ripping a bunch of drafts. We will also be giving away a free ticket to the Drafters main event tomorrow. So come hang out. You can get a chance to win that. And be ready on Saturday for the latest episode of Legendary Sickos. We were recording a little bit later today. Have a good Thursday. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Hopefully you can get a free coffee like mine, which apparently makes for a good show, and enjoy those puppy drafts the rest of the day to take advantage of that sucker before it fills a little bit later. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a wonderful day. Peace.
Woo! Those were some spicy takes. Want to stay up to date with all of the other spicy takes we're going to have over here at Spike Week? Why don't you press that subscribe button below? You turn notifications on, we draft a team, boom, you know about it. We have another spicy take, boom, you know about it. You can be there. You can draft with us. You want to stay up to date? That's how you do it. All right, we'll catch you later next time here at Spike Week.